Joining me now is Jerry. He is the business development manager at Studio 369, which is the developer behind Metalcore. Metalcore is a game I'm super excited about. It is about to go into a closed beta, so folks can go to metalcore.gg now to pre-register for the beta. Everybody who pre-registers will get a free vehicle to play in the game, so if you listen to this conversation and you're as excited as we are, definitely go to metalcore.gg, check it out. I remember y'all coming out of GDC, the Game Developers Conference in, I guess, March of this year. Metalcore felt like it was really getting attention, not just from the Web3 community, but from like mainstream gaming places and outlets. So really excited to have you on, Jerry. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, GDC was awesome. It was really like a cool kind of coming out moment for us. You know, we'd done some cool things before that, but GDC was one of the first times like felt like, we were received like just super positively, like both sides of the gaming, sphere, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But it's also a little nerve-wracking to be like this torchbearer for Web3. But I mean,
yeah, as people have learned recently, I think certainly I give you a lot of credit for that. Let's give folks some context here. So, what has been the journey for Studio 369? Making the decision to move into Web3 and incorporating blockchain into the games you're making.
Yeah, really, Studio 369, even since before my time here, has just been like a really strong studio who's worked on, a ton of different games and different platforms. We have like some VR titles out there. We did a lot of work for like Lord of the Rings, Shadows of Moria that's coming out. But, for a title that, we're taking on when Metalcore was conceptualized, it's, was first thought of, probably 15, 20 years ago when some of the first mech warrior games were coming out. Our team has a ton of background in like mech-based combat games, right? And so these guys thought of this game a long time ago. But it was just, how do you do it, right? The landscape wasn't really right for it. There's so many other technical limitations. And as Web3 started to kind of emerge and be, a piece of technology that you can leverage to increase the gameplay experience, it was kind of a natural fit. And there's a lot of excitement, studio-wide, to make the jump into Web3. I think you've talked to a lot of like traditional game developers, and people are either they don't care, or they're kind of curious, or they've like jumped in. There's from the development standpoint, I don't see like a ton of hatred for like Web3. It's indifference or like tepid curiosity, right? For us, it was very much an ability to take what the studio's always wanted to do. Some of these guys have been around for 20, 30 years in game development, and actually just start to do it.
We were starting to get at this up at the top around, you've gotten a really positive reception from my vantage point, and certainly as somebody who's in the Web3 ecosystem, I love any game that's able to conjure attention in the outside world. What has been the reaction, generally speaking, from maybe call it the mainstream, or from folks who realize like, oh wow, this is a really serious looking game that has these blockchain components? Are you getting pushback, or has it been all pretty positive and maybe even some surprise?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of surprise, like a lot of expected pushback, because like the industry just receives that. And like I was on a show a couple weeks ago talking about this, and our experience has just been so different than like what a lot of people have faced. And we've been so well received and had so many positive, comments and points of feedback about the game that we're building. Obviously, we put the gameplay aspect first, and we put the blockchain elements secondary.
Right.
They're a tool for us, but the gameplay has to stand on its own. And I think people have really like recognized that. So I know like the industry as a whole gets this like mark on it, or there's a scarlet letter that we all kind of carry. And I always like when people start talking about that, I'm always like, I don't know, like we haven't faced that.
I'm fine. Wow.
Yeah, and our experience has been different. Like we've put this game in front of people for a long time now, right? From PAX West of last year to TwitchCon of last year to GDC and 3XP, and the comments have always been good. And I think one of the big moments for me was there's a writer who we all probably know from Axios, who's been around in gaming for a long time, right? Who came to 3XP, and he was the first booth that he stopped by was the Metalcore booth. And he pulls me aside and he goes like, hey, this is going on. I don't want to say his name because I'm not sure if he's comfortable with it, but very public guy. And he was like, man, so I only came here because this other event canceled, and I kind of came here because I hate all of you guys, because I just don't believe in what you guys are doing. But this game is really fun. And he was like, here, take my number down. We've talked about it, put an article about Metalcore.
Was all of you guys in that context blockchain?
Yeah, no, I was super upfront with him. I told him.
No, but I'm saying, like, when he was saying, I hate all of you guys, did he mean I hate all of you guys as in NFT games? He didn't mean, like, games in general. He meant, like,
no,
NFT
he loves games. Yeah, he just doesn't. Okay. Yeah, he's made a career off writing about games, but he just doesn't want to see NFTs in, the game. And so, as I was kind of discussing, like, what our path is and what the implementations look like for us, along with the gameplay that he played, we showed off our prologue, which is this really high level, intro to the game. He was like, man, all right. He's like, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I think I might be changing. And it was because, the gameplay stood on its own, right? It's fun. It's fun whether there's Web3, and it's fun whether there's not, right? It's whether it's not in there. So
that is so encouraging. And what's striking to me is, even as I'm like on your website and things, like, you're using the term NFT. It's funny. I think we had this shift as an industry when people started to really hate us, where we're like, you have to not use the term NFT and we need to abstract it all away totally. And then you almost see the backlash or something like that, where you had that with Creator League, where almost by keeping it so secret, that's where the backlash came. And it feels like what you're saying is, be upfront about what it is. Have a really have a good game, and then be upfront about what it is, and whether you use in-game collectible or use NFT. If the game is fun, that will, that supersedes all else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we are what we are, and the items are what they are, right? And you can call them digital collectibles. I mean, you're just one degree of separation away from being an NFT, right? So, we might be wrong for that. I don't know. Like, we haven't really gotten.
Sounds like you're not. You're like, we haven't gotten a lot of hate, and every other gamer who mentions NFTs is like, all I get is hate.
Yeah, and I mean, they are what they are. People aren't dumb, right? If they found out what they are in Creator League, they're going to find out what they are in our game, right? So I don't see any reason to hide from things or shy away from things. Maybe we've toned it back. We probably have. We definitely have. We don't really say NFT as much as we used to, and that's an industry thing, right? But they are what they are. It's a piece of technology. It's not a it's not a bad word, right? Nobody's going to bleep it out. It's a piece of technology for us. It's a very important piece of technology to unlock the gameplay experience. So and enhance it. Not unlock it is not the right word. Enhance the gameplay experience is definitely I
want to get into that, because I think that's crucial, and just really understand how blockchain is integrated into this. But I have sort of a two-part question before we get there. You referenced that this is a game that's been in the works, even if just in some people's brains, for quite a long time now. You obviously have almost some Halo in this. You have some Mech Warrior in this. I'm curious, what the inspirations were for this game, and what you're really drawing on, or the team, obviously. And then part B of that is, sounds like there has been technical advancements. Maybe that's simply the blockchain, but some things that made now the right time for this game to actually be made, as opposed to a decade ago or whatever you said, when it was first ideated. And so I'm curious what those changes have been.
So I guess, I asked, I talk a lot with our director of design, this guy named Chainsaw. Don't know how he got the name. He still hasn't told me the story, but, You
don't want to know that story, man. Let me tell you. You're better off.
He's got a giant beard too. He's definitely you don't want to ask sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So he's the director of design here. And he was super inspired by Warhammer 40K, tabletop, this, game called Killer Queen, which is this obscure kind of game. I don't know if people have played it. But Planet Side, Titanfall, are all kind of games that you look at and you think man, those games are so cool. How do we do this in a better way, right? Yeah, I always like to look at I used to play World of Warcraft all the time. Back in the days. I mean, up still to this day, I'm still embarrassed to admit it. But there used to be this mode called Alterac Valley, right? Which is you capture this point and it helps you kind of capture point. Capture point A, it's easier to capture point B, right? So any kind of game that you look at that's about territory control or kind of faction-based dominance, right? You can make a direct line of inspiration from us to them. As far as what could you not do then, but that you can do now? With NFTs, right? People think of them as these static things, right? And NFTs are anything but that. They're incredibly dynamic, and you can do a lot with that just piece of technology, right? And so, I think that the thing that I love to kind of just play these mind games with when I think about the game is, what does a mech look like today, and what will it look like for somebody who's played the game for 2 years, who's unlocked a ton of things, who's customized a ton of different things, right? And, through skill or just time spent in the game, are they able to kind of switch up their mech or change their mech? And it thus changed the course of like a battle. And when you're in a game that's all about territory control, changing a battle is huge, right? Because that might mean you own this piece of the map now. And so, I think, games are just getting more and more dynamic and more kind of have the ability to change in real time, right? And we've built a game that's all about that. It's all about territory control and dominance.
Yeah, and NFTs being a responsive piece of art almost, right? Like there's the artistic component of something you own, but then to your point, like it's programmable, right? It can respond to you, it can respond to its environment, it can evolve as actions you take in the game evolve, and that is a really interesting component to add into any game. So let's give people a direct. Let's talk directly about what Metalcore is for anybody who maybe doesn't know. We've been kind of talking around it here. Just lay out TLDR, basic gameplay, basic story. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so I'll start with kind of the story, and then I'll go on from there. But the story of Metalcore is, humans did what humans do. They took this planet, and it's now uninhabitable, right? We have to move to another place. So that happened. There was some transport ships that were going off, and things happened, events happen, right? Ships blow up on the way. People that were supposed to be frozen unfreeze and now start to kind of create a set of factions, right? So we have four total factions. You'll start as a neutral faction, but you'll be able to choose from the Holy Corp, Gear Breakers, and the Metal Punks, right? And those ships all land on this planet that was deemed inhabitable, and chaos kind of ensues, right? And you essentially are dropped into this world that's fighting for control of a planet. And this has been hundreds of years long process up to this point. So it's the gameplay kind of element of that. Is a first-person shooter that has third-person vehicle combat elements. So we call it just combined arms shooter. So you have a ton of different vehicles and weapons kind of at your disposal to help you kind of assert dominance in this game, and fight for control of this planet is happening the moment you start to play the game. So when you spawn in, you see that there's points being fought over off to your right, and there's another point off to your left, and through your skill and items that you've unlocked or have access to in the game can leverage those to be able to win some of these like really large scale combats. So combat matches. So our goal is huge. Really large scale battles happening. And using vehicles, using planes, using mechs and tanks to do that, but there's still the first person shooter element of all right, we've cleared out the base, but now we got to go capture it, right? So you kind of have to do a little bit of it's an all of the above kind of game.
You're starting to get to what my next question was going to be, which is, so this is a first person shooter, as you said, with other elements. FPS is a fairly crowded space in gaming, and I think one of the challenges is making sure you're able to like bring folks back in again and again. What are some of the loops or the gameplay mechanisms you've set up to really draw people in and keep people coming back?
Yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of what we were talking about before. But when you own something, I think that in and of itself, is a gameplay, retention mechanism, right? Being able to spend a couple hours unlocking, an upgrade or finding a blueprint that nobody else has, right? And then being able to receive benefit from that. It's one of the first times probably the first time ever in gaming that like bidirectional gain has been openly embraced in a game. Like we all used to buy and sell Warcraft gold, right? But you weren't really supposed to do it.
Yeah, you were on a black market doing that.
And so now you're encouraging that, right? I think we differentiate a lot from just other FPS games, right? Obviously battle royales are super hot right now. We're not really trying to do anything in that realm. We are, our gameplay loop is just totally different. And that's why, there's mechs involved. That's why there's, multiple, methods of skinning the cat, right? Whether that's like, I'm big on the planes in the game. Mechs are cool, but I'm a big plane guy. And so, you kind of have something there when you talk about PvP for everybody, right? we also have a whole crafting system and gathering system that you can, immerse yourself in that some people like prefer, right? It's people who just don't love like going to the contested part of the battle and shooting each other all day, can craft and make assets to help those people who are kind of participating in those things. There's a little bit of something in the game for everybody, right? There's PvP, there's PvE. You can progress through the game at a pretty similar pace. Whatever way you try to do, you can level up kind of in the same speeds.
I love hearing you say that you see the Web3 piece as part of that loop that keeps people coming back in, and that's certainly, I think, what over time people will come to understand about Web3 being integrated into gaming. What level of integration is blockchain into this, in the sense, like, can you play this game without purchasing an NFT or without encountering NFTs? It sounds like it's clearly, connected to the mechs and maybe even some of the items that get built out as you evolve as a mech. But like, where exactly does the blockchain piece come in all this?
Right. So yeah, it's totally free to play game that you don't need to have a crypto wallet. You don't need to have any access to blockchain or knowledge of blockchain to start playing, and you can have a pretty competitive gameplay experience. Right. The thing that a lot of Web3 games kind of dance around is like, what level of pay to win are you, right?
Yeah.
And we are fundamentally like super against pay to win. This is a thing that Chainsaw is always harping on people about, is that we can't just make NFTs this like $10,000 asset that you just dominate the game, right? So you can experience everything that's happening within the world of Metalcore without an NFT, without blockchain, without any sort of crypto knowledge, right? And we do that through like limited use items, right? So if you own an NFT of a mech, you might have that, available to you at all times, right? But through just playing the game and unlocking things, somebody who doesn't really want to own NFTs, which is fine, like, why would you not let them play your game? Or why would you not encourage them to play your game? It doesn't make sense, right? So those people will be given, limited use items that they can use and limited use vehicle spawns. Obviously with blockchain and ownership, you unlock the ability to, rent items out and loan items, and, smart contracts are really, really flexible. So you can do a lot of things with those, and, those implementations won't be coming to, Metalcore in the short term, but definitely on our long-term radar.
I want to keep this conversation from being too technical, but I do want to go a little bit technical here for just a moment, because Metalcore is actually the first game, I believe, to have a player play on zkEVM testnet.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that experience has been like, partnering with Immutable, and what this has felt like on the back end. Understanding you're on the business development side, but but would love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, so from I'll talk about it from the user end, right? Because that's
great.
I play Metalcore a ton, right? So I do all the play tests. I'm in playing with everybody all the time. The whole process is extremely seamless, right? It took me like 10 seconds to get logged in, right? And that was like with setting up for passport and everything. So, the technical integration, though it's very complex on the back end, the front facing stuff it's just like logging into a game, right? You don't have to link your wallet every time. Link your wallet once and, it's there. So people don't have to be concerned about that stuff, being like a friction point in onboarding. Right. Like I said, I signed up to and linked my wallet and did all that stuff in the time it took me to like get started on Madden. You know what I mean? So, it's very light in the complexities, and and so far on testnet, everything's been great. And as far as like zkEVM and all of our implementations go, we're expecting all that stuff to go off without a hitch, and really be the same experience that we're all feeling right now in testing.
I'm curious what you feel like you've seen, what has been beneficial or what's helpful about using zkEVM in this game.
Yeah, I think when you look at just blockchain, right, it's kind of bloated and it's kind of slow. I mean, it's fast, for some things, but when you're doing something like playing a game, right, it's a little slow for what we want to do. zkEVM solves a lot of that stuff, right? It's fast, it's cheap, right? Even when you're looking at a transaction, of like a few cents, like if you're doing that multiple times through a gaming session, like it's just never going to feel good for somebody. So, it's really fast, it's cheap, it's easy to use. It's everything that you need it to be from a game developer standpoint. I think an end user standpoint, it's pretty easy to interact with, and just going to get easier through things like Passport, and Immutable continuing to build out the tooling, and Polygon, continuing to build out their tooling. It feels great already, and things only get better.
Bringing us back in some ways to something we were talking about at the top of the show, which is balancing how much do you talk about NFTs and blockchain being a part of this, or how much don't you? How has your approach to marketing looked? Are you really focusing on the mainstream? How have you thought about going to market with this?
Yeah, so I think when you are a game that's building Web3, you can't just target like Web3, right? Because nobody knows how many players are even playing Web3 games, right? I'm convinced everybody that says they have more than like, I've played a lot of the games and the servers are always empty, right? So when people say like, oh, we have like 6,000 players, I'm like, God, it's not what I felt.
Not on the day I was there.
Yeah, exactly. It was like 6. So, you kind of have to embrace the other side of that, which is a way bigger ocean, right? Of just everybody who plays games. And our way of doing that has been, obviously, let's take the game to where the gamers are at, right? And especially in these like early steps, PAX West, TwitchCon, 3XP, NFT NYC, did Comic-Con, and just did Gamescom, which is an activation that came through. Immutable was kind enough to put my face on the side of a bus outside in Cologne, Germany, right? And that's one of the great things about being, partnered up with a team that's like Immutable, is they take so much of that off of us. The integrations that we have, and the close partnership that we have with their team is, it's a true partnership. I would say like feels like a marriage, right? That we have with them, and having this game, see success. But they have a stacked team, right? Their team all comes from traditional gaming. Tons of people who used to be at EA and Riot, and who've put out some of the biggest games that we all play today. We'll all play tonight, right? So they're able to help us out in pretty significant ways with that, and make sure this game's really buttoned up for when we start to scale up the users.
And things are moving. You got the beta is coming out very soon. Are you excited, nervous? What are your expectations? How are you all feeling as you approach this official beta date?
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, it's really exciting, but it's it's also in a way really nerve-wracking, because this is when you're going to start to get a lot of the feedback, right? But we're excited. It's also the moment that you get to put out this baby that you've kind of put together, and raised for a couple of years, and just see how it's received. So we're like right in that in-between phase right now of like alpha's done and beta's gonna kick off. We're doing pre-registrants right now, so anybody who goes to metalcore.gg and pre-registers will get
metalcore.gg. We'll put it in the show notes, but
yeah,
just repeating that.
Yeah, everybody who pre-registers for the game, is going to get a free vehicle when we hit open beta. So we'll distribute free vehicles to everybody. So everybody will be able to have, like we talked about a second ago, or people are going to be able to have to buy these NFTs. Well, we're going to give out a ton. So, it's awesome. And, we're super excited for it. And, really excited to see like all the, blood, sweat, and tears and, months of crunch that we've been doing to to get this game out there.
Are there any parts of it in particular that you're really eager to see the feedback on, where you're like, oh, I really want to see if this works the way we expect it to, like specific parts of the game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's like the blockchain elements get really exciting, because I'm a huge believer in like ownership and, provable, like, provable scarcity, right? I guess is a good way to put it. Like, knowing how unique something that you have is, and something that you've built or something you've earned, right, is truly a unique item. And I'm really excited about like the factions, right? So like we touched on earlier, Gear Breakers, Holy Corp, and Metal Punks. Those are all going to be fighting for like dominance in the game, right? And I'm a very passionate Metal Punk fan. And there's like a true split on the team. Like everybody is, 33% each way. And, I think when you have a story that people really resonate with, and want to drive that, to faction wins, it really excites me. And because there's a lot of ways that I see Metalcore having these moments of like overnight growth, right? Where you go to sleep and metal punks are winning, but you wake up and people who are playing overseas have kind of taken back what you earned or like what you gained on the map and then some, right? And so those things like really excite me for the game. And I also feel like I'm the best pilot in the game, and so proving that is pretty exciting.
Oh, you're ready to get that tested, to really test that and prove your strength. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've said this, but I just want to reiterate it. So for people who are super excited, as they should be, the best place to go to participate in the beta, to get more information, to make sure they're up to date, is metalcore.gg.
Metalcore.gg. Yeah, all you have to do is put in the email. You'll get a free vehicle. There's 3 vehicles that are on there. You'll get one of those 3.
Should folks follow on social? I mean, I think metalcore.gg is like clearly the main place to go. Are there social handles they should follow for updates and insights?
Yeah.
Or a YouTube page, whatever you want to, if there's anything else you want to plug.
Yeah, it's all the socials are under like Play Metalcore. You can find them all on the website when you pre-register. They're all linked at the bottom. Twitter's a good place. Discord's a great place to come keep in touch and get access to the game. Ask us for keys. We're going to be locking that down relatively soon for a brief period. So only way to get keys will be kind of interacting with socials or just asking on Discord. But you also, like I said, the free vehicle is you'll be there anyway to claim that, right? So Twitter and Discord, and there's a YouTube channel too.
Awesome. Jerry, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to see how this plays out. And I just really appreciate the perspective y'all are bringing to this. I think you're going about it in the right way, and just excited to see what comes from here.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you saying that. And yeah, we're super excited to, be moving into this beta, closed beta period and into open beta by the end of the year. And being one of the first, real big games that comes out in the Web3 space that's starting to, do that mass onboarding of players. So yeah, we're super excited and hope to see everybody out there on the battlefield.